I love this.
Why did he go and author that legislation?
The one time he did like a decent thing.
Fuel standard that matters so much. And why now is he
like the banning of the offshore fracking was unironically a good thing as far as I understand for even like Florida tourism in general. And like that's the big thing that you attack Ron DeSantis on the fucking Republican side. It is so stupid. God, we are the dumbest country on the planet. I swear to God.
And just 5 days from now, voters here in
Jake
Iowa
Tapper
will cast the first votes of the 2024 presidential race. Tonight, the very first one-on-one matchup between top contenders, Governor Ron DeSantis and former governor and UN ambassador Nikki Haley. Former President Trump met the requirements for tonight's debate, but declined to participate.
Our commitment in this debate is to provide as much information as possible to voters, especially here in Iowa, before the first contests begin next week. So in choosing topics, we focused on the issues important to Republicans. Let's bring out the candidates now. Please welcome Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Bro, this dude does not know how to walk right. The TikTok girlies ate him up when they found out that he had heels on secretly, absolutely eviscerating his chances. Why? Because there is a genocide of the shorts. That's right. I'll say it.
Positions behind the podiums while we remind you and our audience
of
the ground rules. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer
Everybody
questions.
talks about the taller side. Nobody is talking about the shorter side.
And 15
Messed up.
seconds for clarifications.
Messed
Timing
up.
lights
Not right.
will remind you when time is expiring.
We also remind our audience here
Ronald
in the
DeSantis,
Cheslow Auditorium
yes.
at Drake University to be respectful so the candidates can hear the questions and can hear each other.
Just hours ago, the Republican field narrowed once again. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie ended his bid for the presidency. So, with one fewer candidate in the running, let's start with the decision voters here in Iowa are about to face.
Haley looks like
Governor
Mother.
DeSantis.
Oh, yeah,
Why should voters who are looking for an alternative to the current frontrunner, former
mothering.
President Trump, vote for you rather than former Governor Haley?
Well, to the people of Iowa, good evening. It's great to be in Iowa to have a debate here. Donald Trump's running to pursue his issues. Nikki Haley's running to pursue her donors' issues. I'm running to pursue your issues and your family's issues and to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of the promises that I've made. We've delivered huge victories in the state of Florida, things that Republicans have been asking for a generation.
I feel like he's finally gotten a little bit better at it.
Has beaten the left time and time again. We beat the teachers union on universal
school
choice.
He's gotten a little bit better
on crime. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat the Dems on election integrity, and I beat the left by banning China from buying land in the state of Florida. Now, Nikki Haley is running. We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear.
He's beating us by not letting China buy land in Florida, dude. I'm devastated.
She was in another state, and she said the people of Iowa's votes need to be corrected. This is somebody that wrote in her book that Hillary Clinton inspired her to first run for office. I remember Hillary denigrating people on the Republican side as deplorables. We don't need a candidate who's going to look down on middle America. We've had enough of that. I'm the only one that's going to be able to lead this country's revival. I'm asking for your support, and I won't let you down.
Governor Haley, a response?
Well, I think this is a time that we know that we need a new generational leader. We have watched our country be in disarray. We see the world on fire, and we need someone who's had executive experience. I've been a two-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I was at the UN. I dealt with Russia, China, Iran every day. But you're going to find out tonight that there's going to be a lot of Ron's lies that have happened. There are at least a couple of dozen so far that he's done.
Get him, Mother.
What we're going to do is, rather than have him go and tell you all these lies, you can go to DeSantisLies.com and look at all of those. There's at least 2 dozen lies that he's told about me, and you can see where fact checkers say exactly what's going to happen.
Oh God, this is the most
exactly
like Snopes shit. I'm going there.
We'll cover the fact that he's only mad about
I'm going
the
there.
donors,
DeSantisLies.com.
The donors used to be with him, but they're no longer with him now.
Gaza refugees, energy, China subsidies.
his campaign is exploding. You're going to see the fact that he has switched his policies multiple times, and we'll call that out tonight. But every time he lies, Drake University, don't turn this into a drinking game because you will be overserved by the end of the night.
This is so Snopes.com.
Well, I think this
like,
is interesting because you can actually
it's
go to
so,
RonDeSantis.com.
she's giving, I'm giving Ron 5 Pinocchios.
If you hold her accountable to her record, first she'll say, I never said that. Well, one good rule of thumb, if she says she's never said something, that definitely means she said it. And then she'll say, you're lying, you're lying. That means not only did she say it, but she's on videotape saying it. And so we have all the greatest hits. The reality is Nikki Haley is not somebody that has been willing to stand in and fight on behalf of conservatives. You know, she ran for governor saying she was going to do universal school choice, and
I love
the
all of
union.
these debates basically turning into like who's going to be more racist and who's going to have dumber policies.
In the history of the United States.
Always.
I beat the teachers union, and you know what the results are? When she was governor of South Carolina,
it's great.
She was rated 50th
I beat the teachers
in
union.
education,
I
dead
beat
last.
teachers
You know where
for
Florida
fun.
is under my
That's what I
watch?
do for fun.
Number one in the
I'm the
nation.
best. Vote for me. And then these dumbass motherfuckers eat it up every time. They're like, hell yeah, brother.
DeSantisLies.com, and you can find out for yourself. But why don't we talk about the fact that if we're going to say this, when Ron was representing Florida, he said that he promised not to raise the debt limit when he got to D.C., yet he raised the debt limit by hundreds of billions of dollars. He used to support Ukraine. He supported Ukraine when President Obama was in office. Now he's trying to copy Trump and saying that he no longer supports Ukraine and doesn't want to give them foreign aid anymore. He also goes and says that he wants to talk about me insulting Iowans. Iowans know when you're telling a joke. The fact that he's only running in one state is not the way you win president. I'm running in all states. But he should tell Iowans why he authored legislation to ban the renewable fuel standard that's so important to Iowans' economy, and the fact that he co-sponsored 5 different pieces of legislation to get rid of it. And also, then he also said he would never do anything with Social Security. Yet he voted 3 times to raise the retirement age of Social Security. So if you're going to talk about what you said and what you did, I think you've got your own explaining to do rather than telling lies about.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to get to a lot of these issues in the debate. Governor Haley,
I hope Jake Tapper actually taps some ass
race,
tonight, because like, what is the purpose? Like, we're not watching this on Fox.
Of the candidate, Governor Christie also said
I need him to do his job.
He knew he would be the only Republican candidate to speak the truth about former President Donald Trump. Do you
know what I mean?
Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I think the next president needs to have moral clarity. I think you need to have moral clarity to understand that it's taxpayer money, not your own money. I think you need to have moral clarity to understand that when you're dealing with dictators in the world, that we always have to fight for democracies and human rights and protecting Americans.
Ask YouTube chat to like the stream again, the boost it.
And so when you look at Donald Trump, I have said, I think he was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies.
If YouTube chat doesn't like the stream right now, I'm going to shut off chat.
I don't have vengeance. I don't have vendettas. I don't take things personally. For me, it's very much about no drama, no whining, and getting results and getting them done.
That's right.
I don't think that President Trump
like
is
the
the
chat
right
right now. Like the stream right now.
I think it's time for a new generational leader that's going to go and make America proud again. That's what I'm going to try and do.
Governor DeSantis, what is your response to Chris Christie? Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I'm running because I'm the guy that's going to be able to engineer a comeback for this country. I appreciated what President Trump did.
We don't hit 10K likes. There's 20,000 viewers in YouTube chat. We don't hit.
Pay for it. He did not deliver that.
Don't hit 10K likes.
He did not deliver that. He said he was going to hold
shutting off
Hillary
the chat.
accountable, and he let her off the hook. He said he was going to eliminate the debt, and he added $7.8 trillion to the debt. So we need to deliver and get this stuff done. And I think the difference between Nikki Haley and me, I listened to all that litany of stuff.
Stakes so low for Oz over there, 100%. That's just a gimme, as an easy
I thought
one.
He lied a lot. Man, Nikki Haley gives him a run for his money, and she may even be more liberal than Gavin Newsom is. We are in a situation here in Florida, as Republicans, you need somebody that is going to be in there and fight for you. And Nikki Haley, anytime the going gets tough, anytime people come down, she caves. When you need someone standing and fight for you, don't look for Nikki Haley. You won't be able to find her if you had a search warrant.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley.
Oh, God. He hit him with a search warrant line? What is that?
Russia, China, Iran, North Korea every day. No one ever said I caved. I defended America, and I fought for America.
I think Nikki Haley is just way better.
This is
like,
not
she's
a time
just
where you have
better
to
than
have
Ron.
pettiness. I wish
the
Donald
Republican
Trump
Party
was up
doesn't
here on this
deserve her.
stage. He's the
I'm not
one
even
that
saying
I'm
this is
running
like
against.
a.
He's
I mean,
the
I'm
one that I
simping a
wish
little bit, but
would
like
be here.
she's
He
just
needs
more
to be defending
charismatic
his record. Right
than
now,
Ron,
he's not
for sure.
defending the fact that he allowed us to have $8 trillion in debt over 4 years that our kids are never going to forgive us for. The fact that he didn't deal with China when it came to stealing intellectual property. The fact that they gave us COVID. The fact that they've gone and continued to put up Chinese police stations and continue to threaten our military. He didn't do enough to make sure that we were really standing with our friends and doing some other things. What we need is a leader that's not looking at 4 years and 8 years. We need a president that's looking at 20 and 30 years, because I want my kids to have a good future. I want them to have one without debt, one where they can read, one with secure borders, one where we have law and order, and one where America is strong.
Well,
Thank you.
With all due respect, you know, for her to single out Donald Trump on China, and look, I think he could have been tougher on him 100%. When Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 governor in America for Republicans of bringing China into her state. She wrote a love letter to the ambassador saying that they were a great friend. She's on video saying China's a friend. She had a Chinese business 5 miles from a military base. There's a video of her on the website right in front of a Chinese flag.
You can't hear it because
she
it's
works for them now.
copyrighted.
So that was her #1 achievement as governor, was bringing China into the state of South Carolina. So you say you're going to look 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Why wasn't she doing that then when people were raising the red flags about it? In Florida, I banned China from buying land in our state, and we kicked them out of our university.
Oh, God, look at this, bro.
We're going to talk
It's
about
so
China
busted.
in a little bit. I want to talk about the economy.
It's so
which, according
busted.
to a
The
recent
auto
Des Moines
captioner is
Register
so
poll,
busted.
shows that the economy is the
It's
top issue
tweaking.
for caucus goers here. So, Governor Haley, the rate of inflation is down. Prices, though, are still high, and Americans are struggling to afford food,
No, Chad, I'm not going to promote that I'm
housing.
watching
What is
this live
the
on YouTube as well,
single most
okay?
important policy that you would implement as president to make the essentials in Americans' lives more important?
I think we have to acknowledge that Republicans and Democrats have both done this. I mean, the fact that they've done all of this wasteful spending. They did a $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that expanded welfare, that's now left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. What I will do is I think it's time we have an accountant in the White House. We have to have someone that respects taxpayer dollars. And we'll start by clawing back $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. We'll go and instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud, $1 out of every $7. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing, cut up the credit cards. I had to balance a budget as governor. You have to balance a budget every day. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects and the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And then we want to make sure that we allow the middle class to breathe. We're going to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country and cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. And then we want to make the small business tax cuts permanent. They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made small business tax cuts temporary. Small businesses are the heartbeat of America. We need to prove it by making those tax cuts permanent.
Governor DeSantis, what's your response? How would you make those essentials more
God, this
affordable
is so
for Americans?
bad.
Well, I disagree with Ambassador Haley. We don't need an accountant in the White House. We need a leader in the White House, and that's what I would bring.
The fuck does that mean?
With Iowans, visiting all 99 counties.
You can't pull the
and
"you're
also
a
folks all
nerd"
across this
line
country.
on
The
Nikki
American dream
Haley
is
when,
slipping
like,
away.
you're
People are
visibly the
working hard
nerdier
to
party
get the most
here.
out of their God-given ability. They're doing everything right, and they're falling further and further behind. Trying to afford a new home today,
So dumb.
your monthly mortgage payment would probably be twice as much as what it would have been if you were starting out 5 years ago. We have to make the economy work for those folks. Yes, I'm going to battle the spending. In Florida, you look, we have the national debt clock going up to $34 trillion. I see it. If you did a debt clock for the state of Florida, it would be counting down because we've paid down 25% of our state debt just since I've been governor. We're going to open up all energy for production because that will be deflationary. Nikki Haley, when she was governor, she promised she would never do the gas tax. Then she tried to raise the gas tax on hardworking South Carolinians. Here's the thing. We need to fly a flag of bold colors, carrying the banner of putting the American people first, not the pale pastels of the warmed-over corporatism of people like Nikki Haley.
The pale pastels. Oh, God, he's licking his lips. The pale pastels have warmed.
DeSantis mentioned the gas tax. You do want to eliminate the federal gas tax, and that tax generated approximately $40 billion in 2022 and helps pay for road construction and repair. So how would you fix America's roads and bridges if you take that money away?
Well, first of all, bless his heart, DeSantisLies.com. We have never raised a tax. I've never raised a tax at all. I can tell you right now.
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
So I can tell you that
don't talk over women, Ron.
Multiple times. But what we said
in this house, we let women speak.
You have to reduce the income tax by 5 times that amount. They didn't want to do it. We've killed taxes every step of the way.
Misogynist.
But if he's going to talk about his economy,
gross,
I
sexist
think what we
pig.
should say is, why does Florida have the highest property insurance in the country? Why is it that it is named the American hotspot?
She's right.
Inflation?
Florida is cooked on insurance.
That his state is now known to have the highest cost of living increases? And why is it that they're saying senior citizens can no longer afford to live in Florida? So that's the first thing I'll say. We don't need him doing that to our country. When it comes to the gas tax, when we eliminate that federal tax, the money is collected in the states and they send it to the feds. The feds attach a lot of strings to it and send it back. 75% comes from the state, 25% comes from the federal government. What they do when they add those strings is they pay for a lot of things that aren't roads, green
Guys, don't
spaces,
bring up California insurance. We're watching the GOP
things,
debates.
But they attach strings. I want that money to stay in the states. I want the states to be able to decide how to spend it. I don't want Washington bureaucrats.
Dude, I'm not even kidding. I feel like
for scenery and
I don't know if I'm crazy, but I feel like she's cooking them. At least on the optics, like she's cooking them.
On how they spend their
on the commentary, she's kind of cooking them too. Like, you are such a fucking loser, Ron. Oh my God, you can't even get this second. You literally can't even get the second place. Like you're getting beat by a girl. Okay. God damn.
She also raised taxes when she was in South Carolina. That's on the record. And she even proposed a tax on groceries at one point. But I'm just thinking, have you seen your grocery bill lately? That's one of the things that's hitting working people the most, that groceries are going up probably twice as much what you do. But I also think it's important that we lift people up. So in Florida, we eliminated all sales tax on every baby item. Diapers, wipes, strollers, cribs. We want families to be able to prosper in this country. One of the things that's causing so
Florida
much problem
is
the
breakdown
in
the
American family. We've done a lot in Florida to be able to rejuvenate that, but we need to make it easier for people to raise
children. The more the cost of
in this
living goes up,
country,
the more Ron
so that
DeSantis
we
is
can have
suggesting
strong
tax
families
cuts,
in a
which
strong country.
inevitably make the state worse overall.
At a CNN town hall last week, you said you support a flat tax, which is a single income tax rate for every American.
Terrible.
Under your plan, would working families pay the same tax rate as billionaires?
I would only do it if people are better off than they are now. I mean, I want people paying less taxes.
A second Slatriot missile has struck the Twink
The
mothers.
federal government took in the highest percentage of taxes from the economy since World War II, and yet they're going deep into debt. We have a spending problem in this country. It's not a tax problem in this country. And if you had something that was simple and transparent, not only would that be better for economic
real
growth,
populism,
it's also better to end the weaponization
in tune with
of government.
like Trumpian populism. It's the one idea that he didn't take from Trump that he should have is like more spending on people. You know what I mean? The idea that like the idea that that's a bad thing is so dumb. Cutting spending is not a good. Cutting spending is not good messaging even in the Republican Party any longer. Nikki Haley is doing it too because Nikki Haley is like an old school Republican. Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, is supposed to be a new school, like populist Republican, which he doesn't really ride for. Or when he does ride for it, he does it in the worst ways possible by like attacking Disney. You know what I mean?
Waters of the United States, give me a break. So we're going to reduce the size of government, but we're also going to reduce the scope of government. So you would pay no tax for working class people. It would only be as you get above, because I think the first 40, 50 grand, that's just to subsist. And even some places you can't even do that. So you would have no tax up to a certain point,
and then it would just be a single rate. So if somebody makes $100,000, they pay a certain amount. If someone makes $200,000, they make twice as much, and they pay twice as much.
Governor Haley,
I mean, first of all, you just can't trust what he says. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't have a grocery tax in South Carolina, and I never once raised taxes, period. But what I will tell you is it is to call into question, why did he promise he'd never raise the debt limit, and he turned around and he raised it? And then you want to go and you see one side of what he says early on, and then he changes it. So here he goes and he says that he is all for energy independence. He wants to get the EPA out of the way. Well, why did he run on the fact that he wanted to ban fracking and ban offshore drilling?
I love this.
Why did he go and author that legislation?
The one time he did ride for, or when he does ride for it, he does it in the worst ways possible by like attacking Disney. You know what I mean?
Waters of the United States, give me a break. So we're going to reduce the size of government, but we're also going to reduce the scope of government. And in Florida, I've actually delivered on this. Florida has the lowest percentage of state government workers per capita in the country.
It's not good.
And the cost of our state government employees is the lowest in the country. No wonder why we're paying down debt while we're cutting taxes for people. That's the way you do it.
Governor DeSantis, 15-second point of clarification. The question was whether or not working families would pay the same amount.
They would pay less than what they're paying now. The way I view it is, okay, you'd exempt people, so you would pay no tax for working class people. It would only be as you get above, because I think the first 40, 50 grand, that's just to subsist. And even some places you can't even do that. So you would have no tax up to a certain point, and then it would just be a single rate. So if somebody makes $100,000, they pay a certain amount. If someone makes $200,000, they make twice as much, and they pay twice as much.
Governor Haley,
I mean, first of all, you just can't trust what he says. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't have a grocery tax in South Carolina, and I never once raised taxes, period. But what I will tell you is it is to call into question, why did he promise he'd never raise the debt limit, and he turned around and he raised it? And then you want to go and you see one side of what he says early on, and then he changes it. So here he goes and he says that he is all for energy independence. He wants to get the EPA out of the way. Well, why did he run on the fact that he wanted to ban fracking and ban offshore drilling?
I love this.
Why did he go and author that legislation?
The one time he did like a decent thing.
Fuel standard that matters so much. And why now is he
like the banning of the offshore fracking was unironically a good thing, as far as I understand, for even like Florida tourism in general. And like that's the big thing that you attack Ron DeSantis on the fucking Republican side. It is so stupid. God, we are the dumbest country on the planet. I swear to God.
You banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you turned around and authored and led the charge on banning the renewable fuel standard. Yeah. You've got to stand up for those things. You've been
beating that dead horse. That's been debunked multiple times.
Because it's not a dead horse.
I'm looking forward to be able to open up energy for production, and definitely here in the Midwest with biofuels. I'm the only one that checked all the boxes from the Iowa Renewable Fuel Standard, because I've actually visited all 99 counties. I've actually shown up to people's farms. I've sat and I've listened to people about what they're going through, how their economy is structured, and how it's important that we're producing energy here in the United States. I never want to go hat in hand like Biden has done to Venezuela or Saudi and begging for energy. We're going to be able to open up production. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus Shale over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose the Bakken over Beijing. Energy independence it's good for consumers. It's good to reduce inflation. And it's one of the best things we can do for our national security. So we'll do that on day one, and we are going to reverse Biden's Green New Deal and the electric
DeSantis supported fracking and offshore drilling ban when he campaigned for governor. On his second day in office, he signed a fracking and offshore drilling ban and was praised by the liberal Sierra Club.
Border crossings into the United States last month alone. 225,000 migrants illegally crossed the southern border.
I love that this debate is being conducted on motherfucking CNN, and they're like asking the more reactionary questions about border crossing. That's so sick. Why is this not on Fox News, man?
President Trump famously promised to build a wall on the southern border.
They're literally asking a question from the perspective of like,
promised to finish the job.
Will you finish Donald Trump's wall? Are you joking?
We will actually have Mexico pay for it in the way that I thought Donald Trump was. We're going to charge fees on remittances that workers send to foreign countries. Billions of dollars will build the wall. He also promised record deportations. Donald Trump deported fewer people than Barack Obama did. What good is this debate
for anybody, for the CNN viewers, if their goal is to like attack these candidates, not from like a liberal, objective liberal mainstream media perspective?
Just this week, we saw the news
so stupid
that a school in Brooklyn, New York, had the kids stay home. They were not able to go to school, told you can't go get an in-person education. Why? Because
they said that at the start of the GOP debate and we'll ask questions accordingly. Yeah, I don't care, okay? This being a GOP debate and that the fact that they're going to ask questions accordingly doesn't change the reality that they should still be asking questions accordingly. You have 2 Republicans on board. You're not here to service the Republican Party. You're here to ask them questions from like that are not at least like softball questions. The Republican Party, when they conduct these debates, they literally suck them, okay? They suck and fuck both of the candidates on fucking stage. I'm expecting CNN to at least be a little bit more entertaining by having some more contentious questions that they offer to these candidates.
Burdens on our communities and run drugs into this country. That's what's disrespectful. She's weak on immigration. She's bankrolled by people who want open borders. And she said there shouldn't be a limit on immigration. You should work with corporate
God, we're such
CEOs.
pathetic losers. Liberals are such
fucking
losers, man.
Governor DeSantis and also Donald Trump are attacking you for that comment in 2015 in which you said undocumented immigrants should not be called, quote, criminals. At the time, the full context is you said, quote, we don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're families that want a better life and they're desperate to get here, unquote. Do you still feel that way?
I saw them. When I was at the United Nations, I saw them. That doesn't mean we should let them into our country. I mean, first of all, I will tell you that when I was governor of South Carolina, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. Obama sued us over it, and we won. We fought Obama on illegal immigration. We fought Obama on migrant kids. We fought Obama on Syrian refugees. We fought Obama on Guantanamo Bay prisoners. I have always said we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. But I will tell you, in passing that toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we passed E-Verify, which I want to take national, which is where businesses have to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. I passed it within 6 months of being governor.
Do live fact checking.
Ron didn't pass it for 5 years. He only waited to pass it when he decided to run for president. What we need to do is not just ban a wall. We need to put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job.
Oh my God.
We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We need to make sure we go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we need to go to catch and deport. That's the only way we'll stop the incentives of these illegal immigrants coming across. Biden turned around and gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary protective status. That's 500,000 driver's licenses, 500,000 social security numbers. All that does is incentivize them to pick up the phone, call their family members, and tell them to come
Governor
ahead.
DeSantis.
She did bring... When she was governor, she did bring Syrian refugees, and she got criticized for that.
That is not true.
She also, in her comment...
Joel's very...
that is not true.
We'll give you your turn in a second. Governor DeSantis.
Joel Severud, thank you for the 10 gift of subs.
The disrespect comment, she's talking about that they're all families. If you look right now at the border, these are military-age males, many of them. Oops. And they're coming from all across this world, not just from Central America. In fact, you've got them from China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East. When I was down there a couple years ago, because I've sent people down there, you had people from Libya and Haiti.
Please.
This is a ticking time bomb for this country. There are, of course, going to be terrorist cells
that
have come in. It's like the lowest cost way to be able to harm this country.
It's ticking time bomb? This is on CNN. They're talking about how immigration is a ticking time bomb on CNN.
She ridiculed it when Donald
Trump was president.
I'm telling you,
pushback.
You need a wall. You can't trust
no pushback. Like Hamas at the border, no pushback. Really?
Fact of life, and it's a huge step to restoring this country's sovereignty.
Governor Haley.
Go to DeSantisLies.com. I said you can't just build a wall. You have to do more than build a wall. It was having the wall and everything else. You can't trust what Ron's saying. But this is a bigger issue. This is more than him just constantly being desperate and throwing things on me. This is the fact that
it's so funny because like Trump moved away from building a wall and now he's like talking about building a dome.
50 years ago, they put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by what's happening on the border. And my mom would always say, if they don't follow the laws to come into this country, they
I guess my question always to liberals who yell at me
country.
and say I'm the problem and not like the fascists is
like
why aren't you more mad at CNN, which is really making a right-wing heel turn?
Taxpayers are paying for it. You see,
don't you feel like that constitutes a much graver threat to American democracy if you are supposedly a liberal?
He shouldn't be a sanctuary city then. That's why we have to defund sanctuary cities. Now Governor Abbott finally did to them what's been happening to Texas for so long. We've got to put an end to this.
Online
it's dangerous and
worry
it doesn't
themselves about a dumbass left-wing content creator instead of this shit, which is insane.
There are more than 10 million undocumented immigrants already living in the United States, according to Pew Research. Will any of them be allowed to stay in the United States under your administration?
The number of people that will be amnestied when I'm president is 0. We cannot do an amnesty in this country.
I kind of want to move over to the Trump town hall on Fox News.
Come illegally, so you got to enforce the law. It's got to be consistent. People got to know it's there. You also have to remove benefits for people who are here illegally. You know, California,
apparently,
you can go
it's just ramblings, fire hose of lies unchallenged. This is the Trump rally with two Fox hosts sitting next to him on stage. I've heard not one word new that I won't hear at a rally, which is identical to the CNN situation.
We don't allow the driver's
Isn't that wonderful?
But some states do.
Fox News is doing this for Trump. CNN is doing this for DeSantis and Nikki Haley.
No enticements to come in. And then the states, we're going to crack down on sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. And I showed the hypocrisy of all this back in 2022, because we have a program to transport illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions. And one of the places we sent 50 to, beautiful, liberal Martha's Vineyard. And you know what? These are folks that were on their high horse, saying how they were a sanctuary jurisdiction, saying nobody's illegal, all refugees are welcome. That's what they had in their town. The minute even 50 came up, they called a state of emergency and deported them off the island the next day. How do you think Texas feels? How do you think all these other communities feel that are being overwhelmed? So we cannot have liberal elites in this country imposing policies on the rest of us that they are not willing to deal with the consequences of themselves.
Governor Haley, when you're president, will any of the more than 10 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. be allowed to stay in the country under your administration?
You have to deport them. And the reason you have to deport them is they're cutting the line. You've got people who have done this and tried to go through the right way. You can't have them go and jump the line and suddenly do that. And that is actually what will get them to stop coming, is when they do realize they get to the wall and they have to turn around and go back. It's a dangerous process of what happens for them to try and migrate here. But when I was at the United Nations and we had this, which is another reason why we need to have Trump here defending himself and talking about what he would do going in the future, because it's a problem.
Also, yeah, why are CNN watchers clapping at this?
And what we saw is a lot of the reason why they were coming from there.
That's another thing that I don't
and so
fully
what we
understand.
did was we had our military go and train them on how to deal with gangs. We went and put drug boats on the water to keep the drugs from coming. But we said, you have to have them processed from here. You can't have them come. We were able to stop that flow. We've got to go back to do that. But we need to end it once and for all. Donald Trump didn't do that. That's why he needs to be here.
This is more interesting, in my opinion.
Governor, thank you. Let's turn to foreign
Aaron
policy.
is all over this.
You have expressed different visions for how the U.S. should approach the international conflicts. And I want to start with Ukraine. It's been nearly 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and there is still no end in sight to that war. Governor Haley, you say that this is a, quote, war about freedom that Ukraine must win. Governor DeSantis says, quote, we need to bring this war to an end. Do you believe he shares your commitment to a Ukrainian victory?
Nobody knows what he believes, because when President Obama was in office, he supported foreign aid to Ukraine. Now he's copying Trump and trying to act like he doesn't want to support Ukraine. But let me tell you why Ukraine should matter. First of all, I don't think we should give cash
Slava
to
Ukraine,
any country,
okay?
friend or foe,
I'll say
because
it.
You can't follow
Ron
it, you can't
DeSantis
hold
can't say it.
I don't think we need to put troops on the ground, and Ukrainians want to win this themselves. But dictators always do what they say they're going to do. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. They did. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said
technically this means America is not a dictator,
Poland
because America
and the
won't
Baltics
tell you that they're going to invade Iraq ahead of time, and then they do it anyway.
America at war. This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. If we support Ukraine, that's only 3.5% of our defense budget. Biden and no one else is telling the American people the truth about that. The Europeans have put in more than that, and they should. It's their neighborhood. But this is a pro-American, freedom-loving country.
I know I have more viewers
and we better
than
remember
Elwig
that
on
you have
YouTube.
to be
I know.
A friend to get
I have
a
more
friend.
viewers than myself on YouTube.
And we needed a lot of friends September 12th. We've got to make sure that we're having the backs of the right friends, because if Russia wins, China wins. There's a reason the Taiwanese want us to help the Ukrainians, and that's because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. This is about preventing war.
Governor DeSantis.
Muted viewers don't count for view count, probably.
I support
Okay,
Trump's
unmute
policy,
Twitch chat watchers.
Russia, Ukraine, and it
If
was
you're watching
successful.
on both, unmute your Twitch chat.
You know, the Biden policy has not been, but Nikki Haley is basically a carbon copy of what Biden is. It's an open-ended commitment.
See some.
They want another $108 billion. They will not tell you when they have achieved their goal, and this is going to go on maybe hundreds of billions more into the future. I think a lot of people have died. We need to find a way to end this, because our priorities for national security, of course, the border, which we talked about, and people like Nikki Haley care more about Ukraine's border than she does about our own southern border, which is wrong. But we also have to look at what's the top threat to this country. It's the Chinese Communist Party. We are not doing what we need to do to have adequate hard power in the Indo-Pacific. And here's the thing. We don't have enough resources, being $35 trillion in debt, to continue doing hundreds of billions of dollars. We got to focus on our issues here at home, and we've got to deal with the top threat that we face, which is China.
And then I wonder why you raised the debt when you were in Congress, because we're all paying for that. What I will tell you is this is the lie they're telling the American people over and over again. It is so wrong to say this. They're saying you have to choose between Ukraine or Israel and
I know there's no audio
border.
on
supporting Ukraine
Twitch chat.
is 3.5% of our budget. I don't want cash going. It's
so glad I
equipment
unmuted for
and
the
it's
silence.
ammunition. If we support Ukraine and Israel, that's only 5% of our defense budget.
So you're going to borrow that?
If we support Ukraine, Israel, and secure the border, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies.
Bro, they literally are talking about this
when it comes to national security.
They're talking about it like
it's
safe.
This is about preventing war.
It's a return on investment.
Keeping our military men and women from having to fight a war, and you only do that when you focus on national security, not telling lies to the American people that they have to choose. That is wrong. That's never been the case.
So here's the problem with what she's saying. She doesn't articulate how this comes to an end, except she was asked after the last debate by, I believe, Megyn Kelly, and she said, you bring it to an end by bringing Ukraine into NATO. But, of course, we're a NATO country, so if you bring Ukraine into NATO, that puts the United States at war. Megyn said that to her, and then she basically gave a word salad as to how you go from there.
Oh, I wanted to see if it would increase the viewer numbers on Twitch, which is true.
$106 billion that they're trying to get through Congress. Where's some of that money going? They've done tens of billions of dollars to pay salaries for Ukrainian government bureaucrats. They've paid pensions for Ukrainian retirees with your tax dollars. We've got homeless veterans. We have all these problems. This is the UN way of thinking, that we're somehow globalists and we have unlimited resources to do. You know,
damn, they like that. He hit the globalist bar.
You can take the ambassador out of the United Nations, but you can't take the United Nations out of the ambassador.
First of all, I have never said that we should give salaries or benefits or anything else to Ukrainians.
Fake
I've
caring
said it again,
about
Ron, so
homeless
stop lying.
people.
DeSantis
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
So you go, I did not support the aid package. I support equipment and ammunition going to Ukraine. I think it is incredibly important that we're honest and say we have to focus on
I think Republicans are base third worldists.
Don't go and lie to the American
in the sense that, like, they want America to fight multiple front proxy wars,
You're the one
inevitably
that's talked about,
bringing about a J.D. Pond style endless first world genocide.
The best way to tell about a candidate is to see
like,
how
they literally are just like,
campaign.
no, we should fight as many fronts as possible. possible. We can do this with the ultimate purpose being the eradication of American empire.
He spent more money on private planes than he has on commercials trying to get
Democrats
Iowans
at least are like, no, you don't understand. We need to max out.
How are you
well, I guess Democrats want to fight multiple fronts too. They don't really care. Republicans also on top of that want to fight in Mexico.
I'm proud that in the state of Florida, we're ranked #1 for economy of all 50 states by CNBC, #1 for education. She was ranked number 50 in education when she was governor of California. And of course, she wasn't able to do school choice. She didn't deliver big tax cuts. We're also #1 for net in-migration, #1 for GDP growth amongst large states, #1 for talent development, #1 for new business formations, and on it goes. So the success we've had in Florida,
#1 for talent development, what does that mean?
It's important. But just look how people are voting with their feet. They're leaving California. They're leaving Illinois, New York, all these states, and they're coming to Florida in record numbers because we're doing it right. And not only have I cut taxes big time, where she didn't, and governor of South Carolina, we've paid down 25% of our state's debt. That's how you manage the third largest state in this country. Just imagine if we could do that
#1 in
for the United States of America.
So thank you. Let's stay on foreign policy. I want to turn to the Israel-Hamas war. You both have said that you unequivocally support Israel. You both have called for the complete elimination of Hamas. Governor DeSantis, there are real disagreements within Israel about how to handle what happens in Gaza after the war against Hamas is over. Some Israeli cabinet officials are pushing for the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza. Governor Haley told CNN last week she does not support that. Do you?
So we got to support Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And they need to be able to finish the job. Joe Biden is kneecapping them. He'll say one thing, then he goes.
How is Joe Biden kneecapping Israel?
So he's got to
How?
do all these other things.
What would you do?
This is a time to recognize that
what could you possibly do more for Israel?
Jews, murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Hamas wants a second Holocaust. They want to annihilate the state of Israel. So I think to be a good ally, you back them in the decisions that they're making with respect to Gaza. Look, there's a lot of pluses and minuses.
We should do a 5-front war. We're invading The Hague.
Sitting in Washington, second-guessing them.
How dare they come after little baby Israel?
We also have a disagreement, Governor Haley and I. When she was at the
UN, got another thing coming.
The idea of a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinian Arabs. The problem with that is the Palestinian Arabs don't recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. So doing a two-state solution doesn't create something that's going to lead to a lasting peace. It creates a stepping stone for Israel's destruction. So under no circumstances, as president, am I going to pressure Israel to risk their security to do a so-called two-state solution. She was wrong when she embraced that, and we're right to say,
how about a no-state?
Israel to make these decisions.
Biden wants a two-state, which is fake, by the way.
It's a phony. Their judgment on these
it's a phony support.
Governor DeSantis, 15
I want a no-state.
15-second clarification. Do you support the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza?
So as president, I am not going to tell them to do that. I think there's a lot of issues with that. But if they make the calculation that to avert a second Holocaust, they need to do that. I think some of these Palestinian Arabs, Saudi Arabia should take some. Egypt should take some.
Oh,
They've never been willing to accept any of these folks in their own
jail. Please, jail. Please.
Well, first of all, we
throw
need to
him in jail.
The reason we need to support Israel is Israel's a bright spot in a tough neighborhood.
Bro, he literally just said,
tip of the spear when
yeah, Israel, if they want to, they should be able to mass expel all Palestinians.
Israel needs America. It has always been that America needs Israel. When I was at the United Nations, I fought every day for Israel. And if you would have listened to what I said at the United Nations, a two-state solution wasn't
That's an incitement to genocide. I thought CNN was woke. What's happening?
Come to the table and the Palestinians wouldn't.
He literally, unironically and uncritically advocated for mass ethnic displacement.
Give Israel whatever it wants to get the job done. 2, eliminate Hamas once and for all. And 3, do whatever it takes to bring the hostages home. But it's really rich that Ron is going to act like he suddenly cares for Israel when he brought the person to Iowa that's the most anti-Israel Republican in the state, the person that went and voted against Israel's right to exist in Congress, the person that voted with the squad against anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Thank you, Governor.
And you brought that person to Iowa to go and campaign with you. If that's your friend,
Governor
I'd hate
DeSantis,
to see who
she's
the rest
obviously
of your
referring to
friends are.
Congressman Tom Massey from Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, that's just cheap garbage. But here's the thing: when the attacks happened against Israel, I knew it was going to be a big deal for Florida. We have one of the largest Israeli American populations in the country, and we've been a haven for Orthodox Jews in particular since I've been governor. And you know what? Biden wasn't helping Americans Get out of the war zone. These are people that were stranded. So I did an executive order. We scrambled planes, and we rescued over 700 Americans from Israel and brought them back safely to the state of Florida. You got to step up and you got to lead when things like this are happening. We also have gone after the anti-Semitism on our campuses. We did that early in my administration. You didn't see our college presidents doing some of the things that you've seen. I just announced in the State of the State address yesterday or 2 days ago that we are going to say, and not just for Jewish students, anyone who's having religious being persecuted or being marginalized because of their faith in
like
any
Muslims
college around the country,
like Muslims in Gaza,
the transfer requirements so that people can come to Florida and be safe. What they are doing to these Jewish students has been reprehensible.
Nah, just kidding.
They're not gonna let it happen.
No way, those are not humans. He's talking about only Jewish people and Christian people.
A broader regional conflict. And Governor Haley, just yesterday, the U.S. Navy shot down 21 missiles and drones fired by Iranian-backed militants in the Red Sea. Iranian-backed militants are now also attacking U.S. and Western interests in Syria and Iraq. Your fellow South Carolinian Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for the U.S. to conduct retaliatory strikes inside Iran. Would you order strikes?
Also, I don't even understand,
Iran?
like, what hardships are Jewish students facing in
that he did bring
Israel?
That most anti-Israel Republican into this state to campaign. He also hasn't told you that the only Republican Jewish state legislator left his campaign because he wasn't dealing with the neo-Nazi marches and wasn't dealing with anti-Semitism properly. When it comes to Iran, what we have to understand, there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would not be Houthis without Iran. There wouldn't be Hezbollah without Iran. And when you look at the strikes that are happening in Iraq and Syria, that is because of Iran. They're pulling the puppet strings. What we need to do is the idea that we've had over 130 strikes on our men and women in Iraq and Syria is unconscionable. We're supposed to have their backs. And Biden has been slow. He's been hiding in a corner, and he hasn't dealt with it. We need to go and take out every bit of the production that they have that's allowing them to do those strikes. It's hugely important that we do that. And you can't do that if you have a Secretary of Defense that is in ICU and the president doesn't even know about it. What bothers me is how does Biden not talk to his Secretary of Defense every single day, knowing that we have a war in Europe, a war in the Middle East, that we have our American military.
What do you mean? You want to do a war with Iran? Like, I don't understand.
We've got brain injuries. My husband is deployed right now. As a military spouse, the idea that the Secretary of Defense would not even be in contact
her
with
husband
the president,
is deployed? What? How old is her husband?
Is unforgivable.
Governor DeSantis.
Someone said deployed to Ohio? Wait, she said, I'm a military spouse.
Anyone with half a brain knows Iran is behind this.
That's a problematic age gap, dog. I'm
we
just
did a
saying.
special session of legislature down in Florida. We expanded sanctions against Iran. We're the 14th largest economy in the world. The root of this is Biden came into office and he relaxed the sanctions on
My husband
Iran.
got a pretty sweet Camaro before they discontinued them, okay?
Just like under the Obama administration. They take that money and they use it to fund jihad around the world. I'm the only one running for president that served in the armed forces. I deployed to Iraq back in 2007, 2008.
Bitch, you were a JAG lawyer. Shut up.
Goes through.
He acts like he saw combat, dude. Your job was to literally look at the psychopathic Marines and all the different torture methods they use and basically sanction it from a legal perspective. You were like, yes, rules of engagement against a 14-year-old. That's allowed. That's allowed. I'm Ron DeSantis. This is my job.
Republican presidential debate live from Des Moines, Iowa. We'll be right back after this.
Yo, this shit sucks, dude. Okay. Oh my Lord. What a crappy situation. Okay, there's a break. Nikki Haley's husband begins Africa deployment as she campaigns 2024. Yo, what's happening, dude? Nikki Haley's husband's in Africa? Okay, well, so was Tulsi Gabbard. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was in Africa, too. CNN literally allowing this shit unfettered is actually nutty. It is actually unimaginable. So far, incredibly boring. Okay? Like, unimaginably boring. Kind of mind-numbing. But one thing I will say that I think is deeply frustrating about this is that this is on CNN. The fact that they're just kind of letting loose with this, with no pushback whatsoever, is wild. It doesn't even doesn't even make sense from a content perspective, right? Like, the point is, even from a content perspective, it's more fun if you actually have a little bit back and forth with the people. Like, first of all, the audience that's watching this debate is not going to be Republicans. Let's be real. Republicans aren't even watching the Republican debates on Fox News, right? So the idea that, like, you are showing the liberal mainstream media audience what the Republican candidates are advocating for, the two Republican candidates that have no shot of becoming the nominee anyway, without any sort of pushback, is one, bad for content, and two, bad in general. Like, what are you advocating for them? What the hell is this? CNN sat their white asses down and listened to what? To a red man and an Indian woman? Ron DeSantis, the red man. I don't even know what color Ron DeSantis is, honestly. He's here is Donald Trump apparently taking credit for, I mean, dude, this seems way better, honestly. I'm going to look through some of the top Trump stuff, and if it's good, I might just switch over to the Fox News debate, honestly, because, I mean, this is pretty mid so far. This has been phenomenally mid overall.
Actually, the bigger story wasn't the fact that he dropped out. Nobody cared too much about that, but he had a hot mic where he was talking to somebody about the weather, and he happened to say that she doesn't have what it takes. She'll be creamed in the election. And I mean, I know her very well, and I happen to believe that Chris Christie's right. That's one of the few things he's been right about, actually.
So you don't think it changes the dynamic much?
I mean, he's killing it. Look at this.
They're very cunning.
The thing is, like, Fox News is pro-Trump. Everybody knows it's pro-Trump, right? Like, it's the Republican Party's propaganda outlet. So that's the expectation. The expectation from a town hall like this is not going to be a lot of pushback. What is actually not expected, in my opinion at least, is for CNN to turn around and glaze up and maybe even, like, normalize the positions and the shit ton of misinformation that these two candidates on the Republican side are pushing for on CNN.
And I think he had very little chaos. I think most of the chaos was caused by...
Yeah, bro, I was just in call with my 4 aunts and 2 uncles that all live in Iowa. They're all libs and are excited to go listen to the debate on CNN. They're all saying Haley is moderate. Oh, bro, this country is so fucked. Oh, my God. I hate this so much, dude. I mean, dude, there is no... These guys are... I mean, this country is so lost. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's so Jover, dude. It's so Jover.
By the Democrats constantly going after me. And remember this. Remember that with phony, Russia. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, everything.
I think libs want to push for Haley over Trump if the writing is on the wall for Joe. I mean, but, like, what do you mean? Are you going to vote? Are you going to vote for Nikki Haley over Joe Biden? Like, I don't understand, right? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Everything was phony. The FISA warrants, the lying to Congress.
I have a suspicion that the Fox News ratings will cream CNN, and hopefully we'll find out. I do want to know. I want to know if the Trump town hall on Fox News did much better than the CNN GOP debate. Can we not use that word, cream? I think it's, well, Trump was using it, and he's a trendsetter, so now I'm using it as well.
Joe Biden, he can't put two sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi and all of these very smart people. The media hates when I say they're smart, but let me tell you, they're very smart and they're very cunning. And I think he had very little chaos. I think most of the chaos.
How are you indirectly glazing CNN this much? It shouldn't be surprising for you. Dude, CNN at least has the brains to do good content, okay? Part of the reason why they love part of the reason why they loved Donald Trump was because Donald Trump was a massive ratings boom, okay? So that comes with an understanding of content. If you're going to have these two losers, Nikki Haley and little Rhonda, what you're supposed to do in that situation is at least make it a little bit contentious. They're not obviously cutting it. They don't have a good enough back and forth for that contention to be at least somewhat telegenic. Nobody cares. If they did, they would have watched the previous debates. They didn't. This is supposed to be unique. It's supposed to be a unique opportunity. A unique opportunity where at least like the CNN panelists are supposed to, have a little bit of a back and forth. That unironically would be good for the Republicans too, because then it would look like they are being tested in the marketplace of ideas for a broader audience. But they're not doing that. Go back to the CNN debate. I kind of want to watch just whatever is going on Fox News, and I want to see what's happening with Donald Trump on Fox News.
Look, NATO is taking advantage of our country. The European countries took advantage of, I want to use a word starting with an S, but I don't want to do it because I see some young, very good-looking children in the audience, and I assume they're watching on television. But they took advantage of us on trade, and then they took advantage of us on our military protection. Of the 28 countries at the time, only 8 countries were paid up. We were paying the difference. And I went to them, I said, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. And they said, do you mean that? I said, I mean that. And the next day, billions of dollars poured into NATO. The reason they have money right now to prosecute what they're doing with helping Ukraine is because of the money I got them. So, peace through strength.
Mr. President, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here in Des Moines.
Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
That's it?
So we're going to be right back with just a quick final segment right after.
God damn, dude. They're done. They're done. They were like, we're done with you. That sucks. All right. I guess we're reluctantly back on this shit then.
She just said she's always fought to protect kids, but when she was governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to protect girls from men going into the bathroom. She killed it, and she's bragged about it for years that happened. She didn't stand up and fight the kids. She caved to the Chamber of Commerce and the corporation. She said she's against the surgeries for minors. That wasn't what she said this summer. She was asked about it. It's on video, and she said the law should stay out of it. I criticized her in the last debate. She took a lot of heat. So then she's flipped and said that there now should be the law involved. She said she supports a federal law. I'm glad she's come to the right thing. But here's the deal. It goes back to that young kid in the town hall that she had, where he said, Nikki Haley, you are the new John Kerry. You're for it before you are against it.
Oh, God. It's like the nerdiest Republicans that like Ron DeSantis. I swear to God.
DeSantisLies.com. Honestly, if he would spend as much time trying to prove why he thinks he would be a good president, he would be doing a lot better in the polls. The reason that he spent and blown
just say
$150
you're trailing 40 points behind Donald Trump on your own home state. Just say that.
Than he is
hit him with that.
The truth about himself.
So you didn't kill the bathroom bill.
I have never said that we should have any gender operations or surgeries. You're lying about that.
Governor Haley has the floor.
When it comes to the bathroom bill, I will say, first of all, that was 10 years ago. We had a handful of kids that may have had that issue. And what I made very clear at that time in the state is girls going to girls' bathrooms, boys
The real
going
answer
to
is
boys'
that was 10 years ago, as in it wasn't politically popular to be transphobic like that.
I have fought for women's sports and making sure that biological boys are not women's sports, and I'll continue to do that. I have always said we have to raise strong girls. Strong girls become strong women. Strong women become strong leaders. None of that happens if we have biological boys.
Governor Haley, according to the U.S. Department of Education, in 2017, the year you left office, South Carolina schools ranked in the bottom 10 nationwide in both reading and math scores. Given that, why should voters concerned about K-12 education support you rather than other Republicans?
Because I think what we did was we knew that there was an issue. We knew in South Carolina if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So what we did is we started holding kids back instead of pushing them forward. We brought in their parents. We did reading remediation, and we set them up for success. We've got to do that all over our country. We only have 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. 27% of 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't do something, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. That's why I want to take as many federal programs from D.C. as we can and send them down to the state level. Think education.
Abolish
we can move
the education department.
Programs down to the state level.
Fuck it.
Reduce the strings that are attached, and that way states can handle it themselves. People in Iowa know best what types of education they need. Secondly, parents should decide what types of education their children get, what mode of education. And we should have complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. That's why we'll have all of the curriculums online for every parent to see. And we need to start putting vocational classes back in our high schools.
Yeah, I think we need more.
Let's teach our kids how to do
parents
things.
involved in the curriculum.
Carolina.
That's what's
we had
the smart thing to do.
We taught our kids how to build the things we're making.
Because they're so smart.
When we start putting education back
and know
in the
exactly
states
how to
and
teach.
away from D.C., that's when we'll start to see that we're going back to the basics. We're doing what parents want, and we're doing what the industry in that state needs.
Well, thank you, Governor DeSantis. I'm coming to you right now. Governor DeSantis, you have supported limits on what subjects can be taught and how, including American history, in Florida schools. You have also made it easier to remove books from public school libraries. You say you want to, quote, make America Florida. Do you want to implement those Florida school policies nationwide?
I'll get to that in a sec. So Nikki Haley said she wants parents to decide on the education. She campaigned for governor saying she was going to do school choice, to be able to give private scholarships, particularly to low-income families. And she was governor and never did.
I don't want any
She
parent
caved
anywhere
to the
near
teachers
school
union.
curriculum, dude.
I delivered the biggest school choice expansion in the
all.
history of the United States. We beat the teachers union.
Especially some parents who are just like extra stupid.
So the teachers aren't
you really
forced to
want
do
them
dues,
touching
and
the
now they're choosing
education?
other
I don't want
things.
them
so we've done
anywhere
it right
near
in Florida,
that.
and the results speak for themselves. We have one of the top performing.
I think schools, homeschooling should be illegal too. But like, oh my God, if that's the alternative, then yeah, let them homeschool. Fuck it.
365,000 kids, disproportionately low income, racial ethnic minorities. If they were their own state, they'd be in the top 5 in performance. Everyone can succeed, but you got to have a leader who's going to fight the teachers' unions and is going to deliver school choice. Governor Kim Reynolds did that here in Iowa, who's endorsed me. Nikki Haley did not. She failed. And if she can't do it in the reddest state in the country of South Carolina, how are you going to be able to succeed in Washington, D.C.? Now, in terms of what we've done, we believe in empowering parents. And there's certain standards about what's age and developmentally appropriate. It's wrong to have pornographic materials in 4th or 5th grade. And you know what's happened? They'll go to school board meetings all around the country.
It's wrong to have
They'll
pornographic material in
4th or
5th grade.
No,
I mean,
yeah, you can't read it here. You can't put it on the 6 o'clock news. Well, if it's not appropriate in a school board meeting and you can't put it on the 6 o'clock news, why are you jamming it down the throats of a 4th grader?
So, Governor,
nobody's jamming porn down the throat of a 4th grader, you fucking psycho.
Want to implement Florida's education
oh my God! Push back! Ask where this happened.
Yes.
Where has it happened, say Jake Tapper, says Jake Tapper, in alternative universe where at least he has like a modicum of respect for the profession of journalism.
And local governments, but we are going to do nationwide scholarships.
That's sick.
Corporate tax credits, and that's going to bail out a lot of poor kids throughout this country.
Governor Haley.
All he does is just stop Ron DeSantis from yelling over Governor Haley.
Entire career, because I think parents know their children best, and I think we should always do that. That's why we passed charter school legislation in our state. That's why we empowered homeschoolers in our state. That's why we changed the funding formula so we lifted up challenged areas without bringing down the wealthy areas. We wanted school choice. I had a Republican legislature that wouldn't do it, but we pushed hard to get that done. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it across the country, but what we have to do is we have to make it state-centric. We've got to get these programs down to the state level. We've got to let the focus be on teachers. Teachers right now have to be the guidance counselors, the pastors, the nurses, and everything in between. And oh, by the way, they have to teach to a test. That's not what teachers want. Teachers want to do what they were taught to do.
Bro,
and that means
I never want to hear
science, reading, history,
I never
want to
hear about these fucking losers
Schools
crying about Joe Rogan ever
kids.
again.
They need to let the parents parent. They need to let
I never
want to
hear from CNN crying about Joe Rogan ever again for the rest of my life. Okay? These absolute fucking bastards they were like, oh, I can't believe Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is transphobic, which is true, right? Like, Joe Rogan is transphobic. Joe Rogan does COVID denial. And then you have, like, peak transphobia occurring on your original broadcast that you have basically all copyright for, and you have the worst kinds of psychopathic lies being told about, like, children in 4th grade having porn crammed down their throats and not even flinching. Jake Tapper just unflinchingly yields the floor and just moves on. That is insane. That's literally worse than Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan is not CNN. Okay? Joe Rogan is a podcast. If Joe Rogan has a level of responsibility and a duty to inform his audience and not simply be a stenographer, right? Then you definitely don't have that. You have to do something. That's mind-boggling.
Saying it's not your money, it's other people's money, and you have to know how to handle it. If he can't handle the financial,
they don't even have a pull that
campaign,
shit up Jamie out here. What is
happening when it comes to the White House? And he goes and he has been demeaning me over and over again, telling lies, DeSantisLies.com, because he thinks it makes him look bigger. But in the one basic thing, you've campaigned for president in one state, you're invisible in New Hampshire, you're invisible in South Carolina, you're in 5th place, you've got $150 million, and you've gone down in the polls in Iowa. Why should we think you can manage or do anything in this country?
Thank you. Governor DeSantis.
This is a great window into leadership, because she focused on a lot of political process stuff, things that no voter cares about, and she couldn't tell you why she failed to deliver school choice to people in her state after she promised it. So she says somehow that is the indicative of, no, leadership is about producing results. We've produced the results in Florida. We did universal school choice. We've cut taxes. We banned sanctuary cities. On and on down the line.
Nikki Haley plugs this website more than I plug the top of the hour ad break and how you can avoid it by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime.
You look at me, everything I promised I would do, I've delivered, and you can expect nothing less when I'm the president of the United States.
We're gonna move on now.
I need to respond to that.
Go ahead.
So you want to talk about leadership, and he wants to go and demean and put down. Let me tell you what leadership is. Leadership is the fact that I went into South Carolina that had 11% unemployment rate. Leadership is the fact that we turned it into an economic powerhouse, building planes, building cars, building tires. We were named the Beast of the Southeast. We moved the 11% unemployment down to 4%.
Like, these answers are not coming out of nowhere. They wrote the questions, chat. Like, if you're like, oh, well, it's in real time. How can they fact check in real time? Like, bro, they know what the answers are going to be. They came up with the questions. They know what the ridiculous counters to said questions are going to be. They have all the producers on the planet. I mean, they could literally do it in real time. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that there's just not even a crumb of pushback. It's so deeply frustrating.
Both of you have made central to your campaigns, and that is China. Governor Haley, American farmers were hurt by former President Trump's trade war with China. As a result, his administration paid out $28 billion in subsidies to farmers. You have vowed to be even tougher than Donald Trump on China. If your trade policies also end up hurting America's farmers, are you prepared to cut a check just like he did?
Well, that's why Trump should be here on this debate stage. He should have to defend it. So first of all, I've said China is our #1 national security threat. I fought them every single day at the United Nations. I know what they're capable of. The first thing we have to do is we have to make sure we stop selling them any land and we take back the land they already purchased. We need to go to our universities and we say, you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We need to stop all of the technologies that are going to China. Biden approved 70% of them. Trump approved even more than that. We have to tell them we're going to end all normal trade relations with them until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. And we need to make sure we build up our military. But the biggest thing, I was very attached to China in terms of trade. And the one thing we'll do is we won't wait for China to pull the rug out from under Iowans. What we'll do is instead we will move that trade to where we have friends. We will go and build partnerships. India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, Israel. We will go and move that trade over. Right now, you can ask our farmers. When they go and they buy from China, China orders cancels the order, then goes and tries to buy it cheap. That's what China does. Our farmers deserve better than that. We will get them trade deals. When I was governor in South Carolina, we sold and we exported everything we were making in South Carolina. When I'm president, we will sell and export everything that's being made in Iowa to those that are our friends, not our enemies.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, your response?
The way you deal with China is threefold. One, we need more hard power in the Indo-Pacific. I'm a Navy guy. We need more sea power. We're going to build that up. And we're going to have a strategy to deny their ability to invade
more hard
Taiwan
power
or
in
to
the
get beyond
Indo-Pacific.
first
Jesus
chain.
Christ.
On the current course, they're going to take advantage of Biden, and we're going to rue the day when that happens. Second, we got to decouple our economy, particularly things that are nationally significant to our national survival. And you got to be methodical, strategic about it. There's a lot of moving parts there, but we're going to do that. Nikki Haley's not going to be able to do that because a lot of her supporters make a lot of money in China.
I don't think Ramaswamy made it to the
but
debate.
She'll cave on that. And then also with here in the United States, she's saying they shouldn't be buying land and be in the universities. When she was governor of South Carolina, the state gave China land. And they were in the universities. As governor in Florida, I banned China from buying land, and we kicked them out of our universities. That's what you want to do.
DeSantisLies.com. He has an economic development arm. You had an office in Hong Kong. On the website, it said that Florida is a great place to do for Chinese companies to do business. And then when we called you out on it, you had the website scrubbed.
Ron
so
DeSantis is a China simp. He
What
had an
I will
office in
tell
Hong
you
Kong.
We need to focus on what we're going to do to become less dependent on China. And we need to make sure that we look at it through a national security lens. When we had COVID, everybody told you to wear a mask.
So
it was
crazy
made
that
in
they're
China.
running for president
They told you
of
to
China.
take a COVID test. You turned it over. It was made in China. If you go down the drugstore aisle, all those medicines are made in China. We need to make sure we're getting medicines made here, or we need to get it from our friends so that we're not in any way threatened.
Hong Kong
but
Ron.
I'll tell you, Ron continues to sit there and talk about China. He has done expansions in China. His biggest donor that is backed by China gave them $340,000. So don't go and talk about donors and money. Go to DeSantisLies.com and we'll tell you all about it.
Governor DeSantis.
Don't react too hard now. I might actually think you care about the content and not trying to give your opinion to us.
You're talking the opposite of what you did.
This person, I assume, thinks that I'm just like quietly watching
nothing. They had
nothing.
land near a military base. You were in front of the Chinese flag saying you work for them. You wrote a love letter to the ambassador. That's well documented. You were the #1 Republican governor in the country. And even people that on the media who are hostile to me, they say they can't find one instance of me as governor recruiting a Chinese company because I haven't done it. It's not been part of that. And the Enterprise Florida, we actually eliminated.
So here's the website again.
She's backed by companies like BlackRock. She's backed by major companies on Wall Street. They make a lot of money in China. There's a reason why you're in the mess you are in terms of trying to deal with the inflation and everything, because the elites in this country have sold out the middle of the country for China. She is part of that now, and she's not going to stand up for you.
Governor DeSantis, I want to ask about something that you mentioned you've been talking a lot about on the campaign trail, which is decoupling the U.S. economy with China's. China is a top supplier of goods to the United States.
What a
the U.S.
stupid
sells
fucking argument.
more than $150 billion of goods to China every year. Is it really possible to sever economic ties without inflicting major pain on American business and American consumers?
Sure it is, and it's something that you got to be strategic, you got to be methodical about. You got to focus on the things that are of national significance. For example, I don't think it's a good idea that the pharmaceuticals come from there, things for our military weaponry, all these important things that if we got into a worldwide conflict, we're going to ask China, who may be on the other side of that, to continue doing that. So you got to be smart about it. You got to recognize that you're going to have to do some incentives here in this country, tax incentives, regulatory incentives. But I want to make things here again. You know, I look around the country. There's parts of Iowa that have been hollowed out, particularly in the eastern part. And I've talked to folks and seen what that did for the community. We were sold a bill of goods by a lot of elites in this country that somehow putting China in the WTO and granting a most favored nation status was going to lead to our manufacturing exporting a bunch of stuff there. Instead, they've gobbled up so much more manufacturing. I don't think you can be a first-rate power unless you have a very strong industrial base. So we're going to do that here. We're going to work on workforce education. You know, not everyone needs to do a 4-year brick and ivy university. That's not the best way.
It'll never not be funny that Nick Merck said that this guy was his goat.
We're going to do vocational. We've done that in Florida. It's going to be a really, really big thing. But I just think the middle of the country, has to have those good-paying jobs, and we can't put the interests of some of the people on Wall Street over the interests of Americans on Main Street.
You know what?
Let's move on to Social Security.
You know what?
Twitch
viewers get Kayak-Cam.
According to the Social Security Administration, Social Security will be unable to pay full benefits
YouTube doesn't.
in a
How about that?
if no action is taken. Governor DeSantis, you have said that you're not going to, quote, mess with Social Security, unquote. Does that mean you have committed to never raising the retirement age and never cutting benefits?
So all seniors out there, promise has been made to you. You've paid into this. Every single paycheck that you've had your entire life, they've taken money out of, and that promise needs to be fulfilled. So that will happen when I'm president. Of course, I have a lot of seniors in Florida that depend on Social Security. I know many of them, and I think back to my own grandmother who was lived till 91. Social Security was her sole source of income. So promise made, promise kept. You know, on the retirement age, you know, it used to be people would say, well, life expectancy is going up. Shouldn't it mirror that? Well, the problem now in the last 5 years is life expectancy is going down. So I don't see how you can raise the retirement age when our life expectancy is collapsing in this country. That's a huge problem in and of itself. I'll work with both sides of the aisle. We'll work on something for the long-term strengthening, but I am not going to mess with seniors' benefits. In this high inflation environment, groceries are going through the roof. Rent is going through the roof, all these staples, and you get a cost of living adjustment, but that's not enough to cover the costs that have been increased. So seniors are really strapped, particularly those that are on fixed income, and they have to know that we're going to deliver when it comes to their Social Security check. Now, we're going to get inflation down. We're going to get energy costs down. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to help seniors, but I think seniors should know promise made will be a promise kept.
So just a point of clarification, 15 seconds. Removing current seniors from the equation, you're not saying that you're committing to never raising the retirement age or cutting benefits.
I would never raise the retirement age in the face of declining life expectancy. I mean, I think that would be really bad. I mean, just think about it. That hurts blue-collar folks. You get taxed your entire life. Life expectancy's down. You may not even be recouping very many benefits. And so life expectancy is declining.
Thank you, Governor.
That's a big
Governor
problem.
Haley?
3 years in a row, he voted to raise life expectancy to 70 years old. 3 years in a row. Go to DeSantisLies.com and you'll see it. So now suddenly he's going to tell you because he's running for president, he's not going to do it. You can't trust him. What I'll tell you is Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8. He talks about taking care of seniors. Right now, Florida is the inflation hotspot. It's the highest cost of living of any state in the country. Seniors are having to leave because they can't afford it. It's documented in DeSantisLies.com. What I'll tell you we have to do is we have to keep our promises to seniors, but we also can't put our head in the sand. For those like Ron saying they're not going to touch Social Security, that means they're going to leave after 4 or 8 years and leave it bankrupt? No. What we do is we go to those in their 20s and say we're going to change the retirement age to reflect life expectancy. Instead of cost of living increases, we do increases based on inflation. We limit benefits on the wealthy, and we expand Medicare Advantage plans, which seniors love. That's how we'll deal with making sure they have it.
Reducing the benefits, when you do the change in calculation, reducing the benefits. So let's just put this in perspective. Under her administration, you would have seniors getting less cost of living adjustments while your tax dollars are going to pay the pensions of Ukrainian bureaucrats.
That's not true.
You talk about putting Americans last.
Ron.
That is wrong. You've supported all that money going over there. So let's put our own people first. We have to put
Governor Haley, let him speak.
And she also said, recently that the age of Social Security is way too low. And I criticized that, and then she was called on it, and then she said she never said it, of course, you're lying. And then sure enough, you put on the interview where she's there, spitting image, and she says it's way too low. So, you know, we can play this song and dance. She has a record. She makes statements. And I think part of the problem with her candidacy is now that she's getting scrutiny, she's got this problem with ballistic podiatry, shooting herself in the foot every other day, saying things.
Oh, God, ballistic podiatry?
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
God, you're
Governor
such
Haley,
a
you want to
freaking
raise
nerd.
the retirement age for younger Americans, but you have not said what that age should be. Should voters in their 20s plan on working until they're 70?
First of all, he hasn't answered the fact that he voted to raise the retirement age to 73 different times. He can call me whatever name and be demeaning as much as he wants. It doesn't change the fact that Ron's lying because Ron's losing. Everybody in the country sees it for what it is. So what I'll tell you is, that's what we're going to take on. We're going to be responsible.
That's a Hillary Clinton-ass thing to say, bro.
20s. When I said the
actually, you know what?
age was too
I feel like
low,
Hillary Clinton
again,
wouldn't even say that.
It's because if you go, and you can go to DeSantisLies.com, I said it's too low if we're going to look at those in their 20s. We have to go and start looking at what we can do to get out of this. We want to make sure that everybody
YouTube chat,
who was promised gets it. But we also want to make sure our kids have something when they get it,
at
too.
Twitch.tv/HasanAbi.
So the way we do that is exactly how I laid it out. Then we'll know what we're looking at, and then we can start focusing. The other thing is we need to start cutting spending in D.C. We have to go back to pre-COVID levels. That's why I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. We've got to go into every agency, replace the head of every agency, and send people into every agency. I did that as governor. Pull down old regs, pull down old programs, get rid of any problem children, and clean those agencies out and get them mission focused. There is a lot of waste in
Kaya
DC.
is a better streamer.
You need an accountant to go in there and clean it up, but we're not going to take away from anyone else, and he's yet to answer the fact that he voted 3 times to raise the retirement age.
Just a clarification, Governor Haley. In 15 seconds, should voters in their 20s plan on having to work until they're 70?
They should plan on their retirement age being increased, yes. We're going to change it to reflect more of what life expectancy should be.
Well, one of the things that I think we disagree on, too,
so she's
is
in agreement with
Governor
Ron.
Haley has said Social Security is an entitlement. But, you know, it's not an entitlement. You're paying into it. It's not a welfare program. You're being taxed for this your whole life. And so to expect to have benefits on the back end, you know, I don't think that that's too much. The other thing I'd point out is Social Security for decades ran massive surpluses.
Remember when France rioted?
What happened to those surpluses? The Congress spent the surpluses.
Yes, when you
they have a
the
big
debt.
problem with that. So number one, we need term limits for members of Congress. Number two, we need a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Number three, we need to give the president a line item veto. And number four, when you see all these congressmen making a killing in the stock market, like Nancy Pelosi, she could run a very lucrative hedge fund. We need a 28th Amendment to the Constitution that says very simply, Congress shall make no law respecting the citizens of the United States that does not also apply to members of Congress themselves.
I want to turn now to the topic of abortion, which of course has been hotly debated in this Republican primary campaign. Governor Haley, last week, Governor DeSantis said that former President Trump is not pro-life. Do you agree?
I mean, look, I think that he did some pro-life things when he was president. You'd have to ask him. That's why he should be on this debate stage. Don't ask me what President Trump thinks. You need to have him on this debate stage and ask him for yourself.
Governor DeSantis?
Well, look, I think that we've stood very strongly for a culture of life. Governor Reynolds is here. She has stood strongly for a culture of life and enact pro-life protections. We've done it in the state of Florida. You know, Donald Trump has attacked that. What they did under Governor Reynolds here in Iowa, he said that that's a, quote, terrible, terrible thing. I don't know how you square that. He was at the March for Life when he was president his last year, and he said that life's a gift from God, that the unborn are made in the image of God,
Where's the sound?
and that
the
you
sound
needed
is,
to have protections for that human life. And now saying it's a terrible, terrible thing. He's given a gift to the left to weaponize that against pro-lifers, and that's wrong. But here's the thing. Republicans need to do a better job of lifting up folks who are having children. It's very difficult to raise kids in this environment. You need to help with medical care. You need to help with affordability, and we need to help with education choice. You got to be pro-life for the whole life, and you got to have some compassion for what is going on in this country.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how to
Governor,
pin my own message
Iowa,
in the chat. I can only pin other people's messages.
On this issue of abortion, you said she's, quote, indulged in left-wing tropes and chastised pro-lifers. Do you believe Governor Haley is sufficiently pro-life?
No, it's not
I think
letting
she's
me.
been
It's not
confused
letting
on the
me
issue. I think she's
click
trying to
more
speak
and
to
then
different
pin.
groups with different things.
Not
But
on
when
my
she
own
says
messages.
things like pro-lifers need to stop talking about
I can only pin other people's
throwing women
messages,
in
not
jail,
my
that's
own.
a trope. No one I've ever met thinks that that's something that's appropriate.
I type
these
it.
women are in vulnerable
it won't let me
situations.
pin
They
my
don't
own
get any
message.
help
It
a lot
lets
of times
me only
from these fathers who
it only lets other
don't want to
people's
be there
messages. I can only
supportive.
pin
A
other
lot of
people's
times they don't
messages.
have resources themselves. So it's a very difficult situation. And we've got to have compassion for those situations. But I think when she starts bringing that in, that's using the language of the left to try to attack pro-lifers. So I think that is wrong.
Like if I do
but at the end
slash
of the
pin
day,
and then put the message,
I do
it's not
agree
going to
with her
work.
on
See,
this.
it only shows
Donald
slash
Trump
pin.
should be on this stage. He owes it to you here in Iowa to explain this change he's had in his positioning, to explain why he has a tough time saying whether a man can become a woman or not, to explain why he wants to build a $1 billion plus big, beautiful new FBI building right in the heart of the swamp in Washington, D.C. He needs to explain why he didn't build the wall and why he added $7.8 trillion to the debt.
YouTube's the boomer
Every
stream.
candidate needs
No
to earn your vote.
But like, it's
Nobody's entitled to your vote. And he comes in here every now and then, he does his spiel, and then he leaves. I've shown up to all 99 counties because it's important. You're a servant of the people. You are not a ruler over the people. And that's the type of president that I will be for.
He's desperate.
Governor Haley, a response?
I didn't hear the criticism from Ron about me for being pro-life, but I'm not surprised. It's something that he does all day, every day. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband is adopted. And I've got my 2 sweet children sitting in front of me, and I had trouble having both of them. These fellas don't know how to talk about abortion. I have said over and over again, the Democrats put fear in women on abortion, and Republicans have used judgment. This is too personal of an issue to put fear or judgment. Our goal should be, how do we save as many babies as possible and support as many moms as possible? That's what we're going to focus on doing. We're not going to demonize this issue anymore. We're not going to play politics with this issue anymore. We're going to treat it like the respectful issue that it is. And the tropes that you want to talk about, you keep saying, where is anybody talking about putting a woman in jail or giving her the death penalty? South Carolina. There is legislation right now that would put a woman in jail if she got an abortion.
Thank you, Governor.
That's why I say that.
Thank you, Governor. So
wait, what?
I do want to remind the viewers.
Wait, she's saying it's good?
Both governors have mentioned that they believe that Donald Trump should be here defending his own record. I just want to remind everybody that he did qualify for this debate, and he did not accept our invitation. Both of you talk about how important it is to protect the U.S. Constitution.
That's bad.
2 years
I
after
thought her
losing the
position was that
2020
that's
election,
bad.
Donald Trump wrote on social media about his baseless election lies, quote, "A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution," unquote. On that subject, former Vice President Mike Pence has said that on January 6, 2021, Donald Trump put himself over the Constitution. Governor Haley, is there any meaningful difference in how you and Donald Trump view the Constitution?
I mean, look, you take an oath to the Constitution, and I think what you're seeing is Donald Trump basically said that the election was stolen. He went on and on talking about the election being stolen. He said that January 6th was a beautiful day. I think January 6th was a terrible day, and we should never want to see that happen again. And I think we have to always be strong on the fact that, look, we want fair elections, and we saw some discrepancies in those elections in 2020 that should be concerning. That's why I passed voter ID in South Carolina. That's why I think when absentee ballots go out, you should be able to verify signatures. That's why I think ballots need to be counted on Election Day, and you should get results on Election Day. But that election, Trump lost it. Biden won that election, and the idea that he's gone and carried this out forever to the point that he's going to continue to say these things to scare the American people are wrong. We've seen a lot of states come together and do more election integrity bills. We need to do more than that. We still have 3 or 4 states that I'm worried about that don't have that. But at the end of the day, I will always defend and fight for the Constitution. That's what we should do as Americans. I think what happened on January 6th was a terrible day, and I think President Trump will have to answer for it.
So just a clarification, Governor. Is there any meaningful difference in how you and Donald Trump view the Constitution?
Well, I mean, I think that he says January 6th was a beautiful day. I don't think it was a beautiful day. I think you look at that. He thinks that he could go and bring in the fact that he wanted to change what the states did, the fact that he wanted to overturn the elections in D.C.
Janet has more smoke for January 6th than they do for literal ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. and transphobia.
Thank you, Governor. Governor DeSantis, is there any meaningful difference
I
in
want
how you
to
and Donald
die
Trump view the Constitution?
in a video game.
My role model for how to do the Constitution is George Washington. He said, the Constitution is the guide that I will never abandon. And I remember when I took an oath to be an officer in the U.S. Navy, you raise that hand, you put that left hand on the Bible, and it's interesting, the oath doesn't say that you're going to defend the shores of the United States or engage in military conflict. The oath simply says that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. As President of the United States, you will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You can't just terminate the Constitution. I mean, I know he does, word vomit from time to time on social media, but obviously I will uphold the Constitution. And I think it's fine to criticize Donald Trump, and I know the media brings this up a lot. But you know who else deserves to be criticized? The people that violated the Constitution during COVID to lock people out of schools, to destroy businesses, to force masks on people, to try to force vaccines. I'm going to bring
He's trying
a
to make
reckoning
COVID
to all
happen
these
so
agencies,
bad.
The CDC, the NIH, the FDA. They harm people in this country. And when Dr. Fauci said there was no
Governor.
learning
He wishes
loss for
COVID
kids,
was happening
that's a
again,
disgrace.
100%.
There's a reckoning coming.
That's like his glory days. He wishes COVID was happening harder than like some of my Twitch chatters who never go outside.
The powers of the presidency, because your opponent Donald Trump was in court yesterday for a hearing on presidential immunity. And Governor DeSantis, I'm wondering if you agree with the argument that Donald Trump's lawyer made in court that a president should have immunity for any conduct in office, including, as the judge asked, ordering the assassination of a political rival, unless the president gets impeached and convicted by the Senate for the offense first.
Well, obviously, that attorney gave the case away on that explanation. I think the D.C. Circuit is going to rule against Donald Trump on that issue. I'm not exactly sure what the outer limits are. I don't think it's necessarily been litigated. It's not going to be an issue with me because I'm always going to follow the Constitution, and we're going to uphold the best traditions of the office. And I'm going to be a president you can be proud of. I think it's important that people be able to look to the president and say, hey, that's somebody that's worthy of emulating. And so my wife and I, we just view ourselves to try to do well for our kids and to make sure they're proud of us and we set a good example. So that's what we would do in that situation. But I think there's a larger issue Republicans have got to think of it. Donald Trump's going to lose that appeal.
Look how tall
He's
she
going to end
is.
up going to trial in front of a stacked left-wing D.C. jury of all Democrats. What are the odds that he's going to get through that? And that's not even talking about the validity of the charges. I don't think he gets through that. And so what are we going to do as Republicans in terms of who we nominate for president? If Trump is the nominee, it's going to be about January 6th, legal issues, criminal trials. The Democrats and the media would love to run with that. I'm not running for my issues. I'm running for your issues. We need to make this election a referendum on the failures of Joe Biden, the failures of the Democratic Party, and how we have the formula to engineer a great comeback for this country. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley. Governor Haley, your response?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The question was, do you agree with the argument Donald Trump's lawyer made in court that a president should have immunity for any conduct, including ordering the assassination of a political rival, unless that president is impeached and convicted by the Senate for that offense first?
No, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
She doesn't like politics.
We need to use some common sense here. You can't go and
Maoist
kill a
third world
political
and she doesn't
rival and
participate
then
in
claim,
bourgeois democracy.
immunity from a president. I think we have to start doing things that are right. And, Ron said we should have leaders that we can look up to. Well, then stop lying, because nobody's going to want to look up to you if you're lying. But what I do think we need to look at is, what has President Trump done? You look at the last few years, and our country is completely divided. It's divided over extremes. It's divided over hatred. It's divided over the fact that people think that if someone doesn't agree with you, that they're bad. And now we have leaders in our country that decide who's good and who's bad, who's right and who's wrong. That's not what a leader does. What a leader does is they bring out the best in people and get them to see the way forward. That's what we need in our country. We don't need this chaos anymore. We need someone who's going to be a new generational leader that brings sanity back to America.
Thank you so much. The CNN Republican presidential debate live from Drake University. We'll be back right after this.
There's more? Oh, God, this fucking debate sucks. How are you going to pay Kyver a fair share of the stream proceeds off of her labor value? I give her treats and hugs and kisses. So that's how I do it. Ron is darting to DeSantisLies.com the second he steps off stage. I know you can't hear the debate. I'm multicasting it. This is more so. This is so that you can. What do you call it? Why do you support company housing for Kaya? Because I'm a bad person. This is so that you can live watch it along. Wouldn't it kind of just turn into candidates versus Jake Tapper? They're spewing too much shite for him to push back on, I feel like. Yeah, no, it should. It should turn into candidates versus Jake Tapper. That's the goal. The moderator has a job. It is to moderate, not just between the two candidates, but also to ensure that like they are being truthful. If if one of the candidates is saying reactionary garbage that isn't true, then your job, your goal there should be to correct the record. I mean, what's the difference between this and Joe Rogan streams? Like, people complain. CNN watchers love complaining about Joe Rogan. Okay? They love complaining about Joe Rogan, and then they did a literal Joe Rogan-ass debate. Sean Hannity did a better job. You have 20K viewers on YouTube. Do you benefit anyway from that amount of viewers on that platform in any way? I mean, it's maybe. I don't know. Eventually spreads the message overall. And then hopefully it will reach a broader audience. But it's almost like CNN is owned by the same shareholders as Fox. It's weird, like they play a role in swinging the political pendulum as far as Fox does. I mean, CNN plays a very nefarious role in the swinging of the pendulum in that direction because CNN has the capacity to normalize these kinds of weird right-wing policies. Fox News is pushing for the policies. I just think it's completely inappropriate and also in clear-cut violation of the supposed values that CNN espouses. Like, CNN loves playing the referee. CNN loves playing the referee for other forms of content. They do it all the time. They do it nonstop. I'm willing to bet that there is going to be some fallout. You cannot do worse than Chris Wallace on Fox News or even Sean Hannity on Fox News. Sean Hannity, Ron DeSantis, and Governor Gavin Newsom, he did a great job for a Republican perspective. He did. He did a phenomenal job from the point of view of a Republican. That's what CNN should have been doing. But even if they're not going to be like that nakedly partisan, my expectation is that at the very least they will, I don't know, care about the truth a little bit. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Very frustrating. Chad, Hasan is not going to YouTube stream regularly. Yes, I am not planning on like multicasting on YouTube every day. That's not a thing. Okay, I'm not going to multicast on YouTube every day. It's just a test. Okay. Is the debate over? Not yet, but it might as well be. 2024 is about to be iconic. I hope Bernie Sanders wins. Yeah. He's going to win. I think I just saw Chatter driving on the highway and watching HasanAbi. Tell him to stop. Don't do it. Don't watch me while you're driving. I mean, this is crazy. No, the Fox News town hall ended already a while ago. All right, they're back.
We have to look at the fact that how can we be the best country in the world with the most expensive health care in the world? And so the way we're going to deal with it is we're going to open it all up from the hospitals to the insurance companies to the doctors' offices to the pharmaceuticals to the PBMs, make them have to show us everything. Because right now, I can tell you, we take care of my parents. They're 87 and 90. My dad is in the hospital right now. When my mom was in the hospital, a nurse came up to her to give her a couple of Tylenol. And she said, I don't need them. And she said, honey, you might as well take them because you're going to pay for them anyway. When we got the bill from the hospital, no one talked to us about that. Right now, you have insurance companies and hospitals deciding what it is for us. We're going to take the patient out of the back seat and put them in the driver's seat. We're going to make sure that just like when you get your car fixed and you go and they say, we can give you a temporary fix and it'll cost this much money, or we can give you a permanent fix and it's going to cost that much money. We're going to go and make it transparent so that we can see everything so that they have to show us their warts. The second thing is we're going to pass tort reform around this country. I did that in South Carolina. Doctors don't give you those 10 tests because they want to. It's for the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we're going to go and eliminate certificate of need in this country. I did that in South Carolina as well. That basically says if you have a hospital here, you can't have another hospital for X number of miles. They do the same thing for surgical centers, for nursing homes. We're going to put competition back in healthcare so that healthcare is fighting for the patient. That way services go up and costs go down.
Governor Haley, just a 15-second point of clarification. Would you allow the states that accepted Medicaid expansion to keep that?
So the problem with Medicaid is it needs to be sent down as block grants. Governors can best decide how to do that, whether they need to use it towards mental health, whether they need to use it towards support services. Right now, I would send all of that down to the states. The problem is they're only sending a small portion of it. They need to send more of that so that states can better take care of it.
Governor DeSantis, your response on whether you would allow Iowa and the other 39 states who accepted Medicaid expansion to keep it?
Well, I've spoken with a lot of folks here in Iowa, and we need health care that's accessible, that's affordable, and that's accountable, and particularly an emphasis on mental health. In every corner of this state, everywhere I've traveled in the campaign, people are really concerned about mental health with the kids in schools, people that are coming out of service to our country, with veterans. We're going to put a big emphasis on mental health. I've actually delivered on some of these things in Florida. We got accountability for the pharmacy benefit middlemen that are causing your drug prices to go up. So we have transparency and consumers pay less. And I just beat the federal government to allow the state of Florida to buy prescription drugs from Canada, which is 25 cents on the dollar what our prescription drugs cost. I want seniors to be able to do. And then finally, we need to upend this COVID and medical authoritarian regime that we saw going around this country during COVID. It's wrong to force vaxes like the COVID shot and say people are going to lose their jobs. That is not going to ever happen on my watch, trust me.
Governor DeSantis, the same 15-second
I think what you do is you block grant the program and then let states run the way they see fit to do. But I can tell you this. Expanding Medicaid leads to less private coverage. It doesn't necessarily increase access to quality care. I want to actually people get good health care. It's not just about a sheet of paper if you don't get any good doctors that gives you entitled for that.
Governor DeSantis mentioned mental health. Let's talk about that. There is a mental health crisis in this country. An estimated 58 million Americans suffer from some type of mental illness. Governor Haley, you say the mental health crisis is a, quote, cancer that no one has dealt with. What do you think is causing the crisis, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, I think we saw it exacerbated by COVID. I mean, with the school lockdowns and everything else, we see young people now with more anxiety, stress, and depression than ever before. 1 in 3 people right now suffer from mental health issues. But if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life. The problem is we don't have enough mental health therapists. We don't have enough mental health treatment centers. We don't have enough addiction centers. And if you happen to be lucky enough to get one of those 3, insurance doesn't cover it. We have got to start dealing with this because it's become a huge issue. And that's why we need to have more telehealth so that people can get the mental health care they need right when they need it. We need to have mental health counselors in schools so that they can identify when a child has a problem, that they can get the help that they need. But right now, we've got to get access to care. And that's, again, why I want to move those federal programs down to the state level, because states know they need more mental health support. They're not getting the dollars to do it. We don't need D.C. bureaucrats handling that.
No,
we need this on the ground so that we can get the mental health centers, get the therapists, and get the help that people need so that they can be healthy again.
Governor Governor DeSantis, you said right here in Iowa this summer that closing mental health institutions, a policy supported by Ronald
Telehealth
Reagan,
is not going to
was a
solve the mental
mistake.
health problem.
As president, would you
in this
restore
country.
federal funding to those mental health institutions?
Yes, we
Weird
need more
copium.
people in institutionalized settings, unfortunately. But, you know, Governor Haley mentioned, I think correctly, the devastating mental health consequences for these school closures, a lot of things that happened during COVID. I never recalled seeing her out there fighting the fight. I was on the front lines on that. Governor Kim Reynolds was on the front lines on that. We fought back against the biomedical state. We were attacked by the media. We were attacked by the pharmaceutical companies. We were attacked by the left, attacked by Fauci. We stood and we helped people. And Iowa and Florida had the best schools opening in the entire pandemic because we led. That's what you want to do. Now, in terms
Ron
of mental health,
DeSantis
I've run into
loves
veterans here,
bringing it back to
in
COVID
Iowa.
because I feel
And
like
think
that's
we
the
have a
only time
significant problem with
where people
veterans,
kind of like them, and
particularly
he's
the
very
post-9/11
desperate for
veterans.
that.
And we know the stats on suicide. It's really, really sad. And as a fellow veteran, as president, I have to put that issue on the front burner. We can't keep turning a blind eye to what's happening to our vets. It's not going to be done just through the VA, and it can't be done just by pumping people with pharmaceuticals. If a veteran has post-traumatic stress, you need more than just that. So we're going to use the VA to link veterans with resources that are throughout our country. For example, in Florida, we have an organization that trains service dogs to be able to be paired with veterans with post-traumatic stress. They understand the symptoms, they mitigate it, and you know what? The suicide rate is close to zero as a result of that. We got to think bigger than these bureaucracies, and we've got to be there for our vets and their mental health.
Thank you, Governor. Turning to the topic of climate, 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded on Earth, and Americans are already feeling the impact.
I think this might be my last debate that I ever watched.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric
Boys,
Administration
I'm gonna be honest
reported
with
that
you.
the U.S. experienced 28 weather and climate-related disasters that cost at least $1 billion last year, another record. Governor DeSantis here in Florida, Governor DeSantis here in Iowa, massive flooding has left farmers underwater. In Florida, rising seas threaten coastal cities. You have taken action in your home state to mitigate the problems of rising seas. But as president, would you do anything to deal with the underlying cause, which scientists agree requires cutting carbon emissions?
So on day one as president, we take Biden's Green New Deal, we tear it up and we throw it in the trash can. It is bad for this country. We have to have reliable
Yeah, it's
energy.
happening. It's
And
a
here's
real
the
Green
thing.
New Deal. We've
You know,
done it
they
already.
talk
It's
about,
totally
Joe Biden
real.
has said that global warming is worse than a nuclear war. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, gee, John Kerry hasn't given up his private jet. Obama hasn't given up his Martha's Vineyard seaside mansion. I haven't seen Biden do anything to hold China accountable except making sure that Hunter gets his money. So these guys talk out of one side of their mouth and then they behave in another way. And I think that's wrong. But I also think that those policies would devastate communities, particularly here in Iowa. I mean, for example, he wants to mandate electric vehicles. That's going to be more costly. I think the car companies would go bankrupt, but it's going to hurt liquid fuels, which is very, very important. You're going to end up having rolling blackouts if they kneecap reliable energy production in this country. Florida's had a massive decline in emissions. Wasn't because of a single mandate. It was because of innovation, because a lot of natural gas has replaced coal. We do have market-based solar, and it's a complement, but we cannot walk away from reliable energy. And I think about, here's what the left wants to do. They want to take away your freedom, and they want you to pay more for everything. We need you to pay less for energy, and we need to make sure people can innovate. We cannot have these mandates, and they'll be gone the day I'm president.
So, Governor, just a point of clarification, 15 seconds. Recent research at the University of Iowa ties these floods in Iowa to the rise in greenhouse gases.
And here's the thing,
let me
Jay,
just ask the question. As president, would you do anything to deal with this underlying cause?
Innovate. And here's the thing. China is building 2 coal plants a week. You can do everything Biden wants to do, and you're going to have way more of what China's increasing it. So why would we be cutting off our nose to spite our face? China is the problem here, and so hold them accountable.
Thank you,
don't
Governor.
Hold the American people.
Thank you,
to less
Governor. Governor
opportunity.
Haley, as president, would you do anything to deal with the underlying cause of the floods and other climate disasters, which scientists agree requires cutting carbon emissions?
I mean, first of all,
interesting that they're talking about requiring cutting carbon emissions and how what science agrees on now. Nothing on the trans issue, nothing on genocide, nothing on immigration, but now they're actually talking about lib stuff.
Don't deal in
and they're and like they've done more They've done more arguments that defend like the sanctity of the institutions on January 6th than anything else.
Anything to hold China and India to account. Those are the two countries we have to really go to if we care about the environment, that we go and
so
make
they are
them
capable
be
of doing
held accountable.
pushback. So
The
why
second
didn't they
thing
do
is
it for
we'll
other
roll
stuff?
back
That's the
all of
question.
Biden's green subsidies, because they're misplaced. Rather than putting anything towards innovation on what we can do on nuclear fusion and other things that reduce emissions, which there are things out there, to go and have everybody have to drive an electric car by 2035, that's not even smart. One, because, which, by the way, Ron took Biden's stimulus money and did charging stations all throughout Florida. I wouldn't have taken the stimulus money. But what that does is basically we don't have the infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about charging stations. Electric vehicles are heavy. Our roads and bridges wouldn't be able to handle that if we did that, because they're heavy in weight. And so we have to be smart about the way we do that. Not to mention 70% of the batteries in electric cars are made in China. So Biden gave this massive windfall to our #1 national security threat. If we're going to do it, innovate it, transition, and do it the right way, not in extremes.
Thank you. I want to turn to the issue of crime. The majority of Americans describe crime in the U.S. as either extremely or very serious. Recent data show crime rates falling, but some violent crime
why
rates
did they
do
think
remain
that?
high.
Why did the
Governor
majority of
Haley,
Americans
former
think that about
President
crime?
Trump,
You
he
think
might
you had
try
something to
stop
do with that?
violent crime by
CNN?
deploying U.S. troops to Democratic-run states and cities, something he could potentially do under the Insurrection Act. Is that something that you would do as president?
What I would do is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. It's hugely important that we do that. That's where we're seeing a lot of crime. But the second thing is our law enforcement is demoralized right now, because if they go and they arrest someone for having a stolen gun, it's demoralizing when they go through all that effort, put their lives at risk, and then you turn around and let that criminal go the very next day. Prosecutors need to prosecute according to the law, and we've got to start holding them accountable. When we bring law and order back to our cities, then that's when they'll be safe. You don't do it by defunding the police, and you don't do it by just praising the police. You do it by having their backs, making sure we pass the first body camera bill in the country in South Carolina to make sure that law enforcement felt like they could do their job without feeling threatened about them doing their job. But we have to have prosecutors prosecuting. We have to defund sanctuary cities. We have to get these stolen guns and drugs off the street. And the only way we can do that is when we empower law enforcement.
Governor DeSantis.
I just think, that quote from the former President Trump is a little bit rich, because he was president during the worst rioting in the modern history of this country, the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. When I saw that happening in Minneapolis, in Florida, I called out the National Guard. We had state law enforcement deployed. We said, you're not burning down our cities in this state. And you know what? It didn't happen. He sat in the White House and tweeted law and order, but he did nothing to ensure law and order. As your president, I will never let our cities burn. You have every right to stop this runaway rioting as president. In fact, you have a duty. Now, Nikki Haley and I have a disagreement on the BLM stuff too, because she tweeted during this period of time that the death of George Floyd should be, quote, personal and painful for each and every American. But people in Iowa had nothing to do with that, or Florida or South Carolina. She was virtue signaling to the left. She was accepting the narrative, and she was trying to impress people who were never going to like us. I never bought into going after the police.
She's like, I will never make you feel bad about police brutality.
We're about lower crime as a result of that.
Thank you. Governor Haley?
It's interesting that he did that. He put a tweet that was very similar, but let me tell you why I did that. First of all, we had one of the worst two racial shootings. We had the shooting of Walter Scott, who was shot 7 times in the back by a dirty cop. We had a horrific shooting at a church where a white supremacist came in and killed 9 amazing souls. BLM, all of that, we never had to deal with riots. We never had to call in the National Guard, Ron, because when we had both of those shootings, we were able to pull people together. We didn't have riots, we had vigils. We didn't have protests, we had prayer. We brought people together. When I said that about George Floyd, when we turned around and had the worst shooting in a religious place that we had seen in this country, Not only did I pass the first body camera bill in the country and keep our state together, not only did I move to bring the Confederate flag down, we came together as a state in prayer, and we had no division, no riots, no anything. We didn't need the National Guard because a leader knows how to bring out the best in their people.
Thank you, Governor. So you have been sparring on the campaign trail for months. We've seen some vicious attack ads going back and forth, and tonight we have had a very lively debate. On a different note,
so lively,
Governor
debate.
DeSantis, let me ask you, what do you admire about Governor Haley?
Well, look, I mean, I think that, you know, at the United Nations...
Is this a mother quake on the Hunter scale?
She spoke out strongly on some key issues.
I don't know.
And I appreciated that.
But
I
if
also
it is,
appreciate
I hope it takes
the
me.
state of South Carolina. My wife is a College of Charleston graduate. Her parents lived there for many, many years. And so it is a wonderful state. There's a lot of great people there. And I think to be able to have been governor there is a great achievement. And I really appreciate everyone I've gotten to meet in South Carolina.
Governor Haley, what do you admire about Governor DeSantis?
I think he's been a good governor.
Okay. So we're going to squeeze in another quick break, and we'll be right back with more.
Okay, it turns out the real secret is to get little Rhonda to laugh. Okay, you say something nice about little Rhonda, and then he smiles, and then it's Jover. He just dipped. I watched his polls dip by at least 5% in real time. I'm not even kidding. I watched it happen right in front of my eyes. That was crazy. He's like, hello, I'm Ron DeSantis.